Appreciate it. I'm gonna just jump right in. Taylor, you were crowned as the fourth Black Miss Texas USA at a time when diversity, equity, inclusion is seemed like it's the talk of the town, and everybody's saying that if a Black person gets something, if a woman gets something, obviously this is a female competition, it's because of diversity. What has been the response of people, Black and white, to your win?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny you say that. I did receive some of those comments. Obviously, pageants are very subjective. Not everyone is going to agree with who won, but I definitely got those, DEI comments or not being deserving. But I don't pay attention to it too much. I had too many people who really resonated with my story and really resonate with my journey to, pay attention to any negativity. And I think it just gives me more motivation and reassurance that it's important to continue to, take up space in places like pageantry and even other parts of my life where it might be intimidating. You might be one of very few, but that shouldn't deter you from, still doing your thing. So I try to stay positive.
Yeah, you say you don't give it much attention, but what would you say to the younger generation? Because you have a lot of kids coming up and kind of absorb what you hear. I know as a child, I absorbed some of the negative stereotypes that people have had about Black men. So, what would you say to those young girls who might be coming up in a time where they didn't see previous three Miss Texas USAs? They didn't see, maybe they didn't see Michelle Obama as first lady. What would you say to them to not get them discouraged about any accomplishment that they maybe want to achieve?
I would say first and foremost, you define your own narrative and you determine where you have the potential to go. Never let anyone else's narrative become your reality, right? You decide that for yourself. And just in general, when it comes to chasing dreams that are on your heart, things might seem scary or I don't know if this is for me. I've never seen someone who looks like me do this before. Don't be afraid to be that trailblazer. Don't be afraid to break those barriers. Sometimes the only thing that separates us from accomplishing amazing things is just making that decision to believe in yourself and making that decision to take that leap of faith. My platform is called Hail Mary, and I kind of preach what I call Hail Mary mentality. And I think that's what it's all about. It's about not letting anything deter you, right? You can be scared, but just make that choice to do it scared anyway. Make that choice to want to be, the first to do it. And once you adjust and you start looking at life with that mentality, it opens so many doors for you.
Or you mentioned just not being scared. So where did that confidence come from? Like you're a role model to these young girls with Hail Mary, but where did your confidence come from? What type of mentorship did you have? Parents, and I know you're in a sorority and stuff like that. So where did you get this belief in yourself from?
That's a great question. I think, in short, it's a culmination of just all of my experiences. I went to Howard University, which is the best decision I've ever made in my life, was going to an HBCU. I think that, it just helps you really develop your one identity as a Black person, but it's much easier to form an opinion, an idea of who you are and what you want to be when you have an understanding of what your community has been through and what we've overcome. It just gives you a different type of purpose. And so I think my HBCU experience gave me the confidence as a Black woman to just know that any space is for me if I decide that it is. I have an amazing support system of family and friends who, support absolutely everything that I do and just show me so much kindness. And I'm so blessed to have. But I think also the biggest confidence builder for me is, learning that it's okay to receive a no. I think that's where our confidence gets broken down when we don't know how to move forward past rejection. We don't know how to move forward past receiving a no, or maybe it's something we really wanted to go after and it didn't work out. When you rebuild yourself and then you pick yourself back up and try again, I think that's where you build the confidence because you realize this one thing doesn't define me. And once you have a good idea of who you are and you stay grounded in that, there's no opportunity that will ever, leave you that, will ever define who you are. So I think that's really the biggest confidence builder for me. It's a lot of where I've come from and just that willingness to put myself in situations that may be uncomfortable, but are going to help me grow.
All right, I'm an HBCU alum as well, Southern University, and I have family. I think that's the best
Hey,
HBCU. I'm gonna say that. You know what I mean? But I have family
Yeah,
in
well,
Athens. You know what I mean? You know, I mean, you're
I
an
have a
AK.
lot of family who, yeah. Sorry, say that again.
I said you're an AKA, so I got love for you. My sister's an AKA, you know what I mean? So it's all good. You know what I mean? But
Amazing. Yeah, I have love for Southern. Everyone on my mom's side either went to Grambling or Southern, so it's all good.
so I know you're from Allen, Texas. I have a cousin from Allen, Texas. You mentioned you're getting a sense of self at Howard. How did your mentality change? Kind of I'm kind of sure what the demographics of Allen is or whatever are, but how did that experience change your mentality and how you saw yourself by going from that environment to an HBCU?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big shift. And I think growing up, I think a lot of young Black people can relate to growing up in spaces where you are one of, very few, or maybe you're the only one, in your classrooms, on your dance team or cheer team, and your extracurriculars. And I think that can be confusing, as you're forming your opinion of yourself and just what does it mean to be a Black woman, when you're just not exposed to it a lot. And so I think going to Howard, it just gave me so much clarity. I was able to experience, I'm seeing so many different types of people who look like me, but they're not exactly like me, right? I grew up in a suburb, kind of outside of the city, but I meeting people who grew up in the city, meeting people who maybe grew up in more rural areas. I met Caribbean people, East Coast, West Coast, everything. It just really opened my eyes to just the diversity of Black people. We are not a monolith. We are so diverse and so many different parts of our culture that deserve to be celebrated. And I think that was the biggest culture shock, I guess, if you will, going to an HBCU when you come from an area where you're used to being one of very few. It was just amazing, having I always say I never had a Black teacher until I went to Howard, and that in and of itself, having faculty members and professors and administrators that look like you, you connect with them on a different level. They understand life from your lens, so it really does make a difference. And it was just an amazing couple of years, for me to grow and really figure out who Taylor was.
All right, I'm gonna go back to the previous winners of Miss Texas. I had an opportunity to interview Crystal Stewart years ago, who's Miss USA, Miss whatever, and she's from Missouri City. So, what type of advice have you gotten from some of the previous African American winners of Miss Texas USA?
Oh, I mean, they're so kind. They just let me know all the time, Texas is behind you, Texas is supporting you, and to never be deterred by, other people's opinions, because that comes and goes. They've all gone through it, but the biggest thing is, not to allow the pressure to make me feel any not to make me feel poorly about myself, because it's a lot of pressure just in general representing Texas at Miss USA. Texas has, an amazing track record at Miss USA. Texas is the winningest state. So 10 previous Miss Texas USAs have gone on to win Miss USA. We had a Miss Texas in 2022, Arbany Gabriel, who went on to win Miss Universe. So there is a big legacy there. And now stepping into this as the fourth Black woman in history to represent Texas at Miss USA, there are just a lot of people, that I want to make proud, a lot of people that are rooting for me. And I think the best pieces of advice is just to, not crumble under that pressure, but allow it to make you stronger. And, it's a cliche. People always say pressure forms diamonds, allow that to really make you and allow it to motivate you and just bring your best self to that stage, drown out all the noise and just have fun when you hit that stage and just make everybody proud. So I'm excited to do that.
All right, I can't remember exactly what year Crystal won, but I don't think social media was as prevalent. You mentioned the pressure.
Yeah, it
What
was
is
2000. Mhm.
Okay, so what is that pressure like? I mean, do you get constantly bombarded with good and bad on social media? How do you handle that? You just don't answer comments and don't answer DMs. How does that work? But then at the same time, you want to be social and you want to, be friendly with the people of Texas. So how do you handle that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think social media, is a tool. It can be used for really great things and positive conversation, but it can also, you can allow it to kind of overcome you and kind of become an unhealthy thing. So I try to keep a healthy balance. I do love to engage with people on social media and connect with people, share my story through there. I get so many people who DM me and just leave very nice comments. And I would say that the negativity, thankfully, has been, very few and far between in terms of just, the sheer volume of it. But the biggest problem I think with social media, especially as a pageant contestant, is it's really easy to fall into the comparison game. And just in general, even outside of, pageants, if you're on social media, it's very easy to start comparing yourself to the things that you see. Am I doing what I need to do? How do I match up with these people? But I always tell whenever I speak to young girls, because that's, a passion of mine, I always tell them, when you start playing the comparison game, I want you to think about the cliche comparison is the thief of joy. But I tell them, I want you to literally think about it like a thief in the night, like you are robbing yourself, of a well-deserved and well-earned opportunity to celebrate yourself. When you compare yourself to other people and their journeys, you forget sometimes to pat your own self on the back and acknowledge how far you've come. So I always advise people, when you start to compare yourself, to things you see on social media, like take a moment and just take that moment for gratitude. Then pat yourself on the back, acknowledge how far you've come. You deserve to celebrate how far you've come and where you are now. So don't, ruin that moment. Don't deprive yourself of a moment to celebrate yourself because you're so focused on other people.
Speaking of social media, you work for the NFL in social media. So tell me about that job and what type of experiences have you had as a woman in like a male-dominated industry?
Absolutely. So I love sports. I have a, kind of a family legacy in sports. My late uncle, Uncle Willie, was a NFL Hall of Famer. He was inducted in 1981. So he was a Green Bay Packers legend. And so I've always loved sports and just seen firsthand how it can kind of be used as a platform for not just your athletic ability, but a platform for leadership and empowerment and inspiration. So I am really proud to just kind of carry that inspiration forward in my job at the NFL. I work on our social media team as a data analyst, and this is my fourth season at the NFL. And it's intimidating. I think it's the same sentiments and same kind of mentality I had to adapt entering a space that is notoriously male dominated. There are very few women in sports, even fewer women of color. So sometimes you do step into rooms where, you might be the only person who looks like you, and that can absolutely be intimidating. But I just reinforce that same message of sometimes you just have to do it scared. It can be intimidating, but you still make that choice to do it anyway. And you walk in every room like you belong there. And even if that means you got to fake it till you make it the first time, until you really start believing in yourself, I think that's the key. And that's just the mentality that I've had to build, being in that space and then also competing. You have to believe in yourself if you expect other people to believe in you as well.
All right, I'm kind of going to veer back to politics a little bit because everything seems so political nowadays. You've had political figures and some athletes who've said that a woman would be more happy at home running a house and having kids instead of being in the workforce. What do you say to people who have that mentality still in 2025?
Yeah, I think that every woman just like she should make her own decision about what makes her happy. I think don't, allow yourself to be influenced so heavily by what people may say on social media or what they're trying to convince you is important. You just go out there. I think I advocate for every young woman to just experience as much life as she possibly can. If that means going into the workforce, if that means going in 100% on being, a mom and prioritizing your family, I think that's okay. And I think that's the power and beauty of being a woman is that duality. You can do multiple things and you can invest your time in multiple things. You don't have to put yourself in a box because of anything someone else tells you. And, when I compete at Miss Texas, I competed 3 times. And every year, I compete with doctors, lawyers, mothers, wives, you just see the whole spectrum and just the diversity and multifaceted nature of women. And I think that's beautiful. And that's what we should be celebrating. People have the decision to prioritize whatever they want in their lives. And I think that everyone deserves to, you know, be happy with the things that make them happy.
You mentioned being in the pageant 3 times. What started your love for pageants? Like where did you begin on this road to being Miss Texas USA?
Yes, so I competed at Miss Texas USA 3 times before I won, but my pageant journey actually started while I was at Howard. And so I was Miss Howard when I was there. And before that, I was Miss School of Business. So I did both of those pageants while I was at Howard. And while I was on the road court, I was actually attending a leadership conference in 2019 where I met Deshauna Barber, who was Miss USA 2016. And I heard her speak. She was a Black woman, or is a Black woman. She also went to an HBCU. And it was just this moment, you know, where I felt so inspired. Like, I see her, you know, she is me, I am her. And I kind of left with the idea that not only could I maybe be Miss USA one day myself, but really, you know, I could be anything. And I think that's the just the power and the responsibility of being a title holder. You know, that's what you do. You inspire people to pursue the current dreams on their heart, but you also inspire them to pursue new dreams. And I think that's exactly what she did for me. And that's kind of what really put the crazy idea in my head that I could be Miss USA one day. And then I started competing in Texas in 2023. And the rest is history. Now I'm leaving in less than 24 hours to go to Reno for the Miss USA competition.
Good luck. I'm cheering for you. But on this last question, I don't want to hold you too long. You mentioned the legacy of Miss Texas USA. You mentioned the legacy of your family. What do you want
Yeah.
Taylor's personal legacy to be when it's all said
I
and
just
done?
want That's a great question. I think I just want my legacy, and what people remember me as, you know, to just be someone who inspired other people to just not be afraid, to just release themselves of fear. I think we rob ourselves of so many opportunities, and we really cut ourselves short, or, you know, we deprive ourselves of so much. We have no idea how capable we are and how much potential we have until we make those bold decisions and we take that leap of faith to just bet on ourselves and go for whatever it is. You know, my biggest hope is that if it's even one person, you know, that I can convince them to just sit down and say, you know what's stopping me? You know, let me develop that Hail Mary mentality and just go for it. Like, that is what I envision my legacy being. I just want people to be able to say that my journey and my words and just my example inspired them to dream and not be afraid of any, you know, anything that could possibly deter them. I want people to just have that confidence to take bold leaps and open so many opportunities for their lives.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your time and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
No problem.